Good morning, one mind, one world, people. It is Friday. I think it's the 1st of August today, actually. Let's see. No, I don't even know what day is it today. But I'm continuing with today dictation of the Ghislaine Maxwell documents / Epstein documents. And yesterday we left off on the telephone interview with Virginia Roberts between her and Scarola, who is the lawyer of her lawyer, Edwards. Hope everyone is having a good morning. I had a great walk early this morning. Saw 3 deer, so that was cool. So let's continue. Scarola says, all right, once this evolved into full-time employment, and he's referring to the massages, what did full-time employment mean? That was entirely having to travel with Jeffrey in every city. When he was in Palm Beach, I stayed at my apartment, and he would call me to his house once or twice a day, sometimes, and that's, to do things with him. Sometimes we'd go out shopping, sometimes we'd go out and watch a movie. Some simple things like that. Go to an expo or a fair, whatever it was. But when we were in other cities, I was at my apartment. I lived with him full time. What I mean by full time is even in the middle of the night, I could get a ring on my phone next to me and tell me to come to his room, so it was literally full time. Well, that was a mistake. Just lost my place. When you say that you were in Palm Beach, you were living in your apartment. Were you living on your own, or were you living with members of your family at that time? No, after I quit Mar-a-Lago, Jeffrey ordered me to get me an apartment in Palm Beach somewhere, Royal Palm Beach, and it was a nice apartment. He furnished it for me. It was absolutely beautiful, but yeah, that's the only time I would spend time away from him, really. This apartment was on Royal Palm Beach Boulevard, or out in the village of Royal Palm Beach. I so honestly don't remember. I've been trying to rack my brain because the FBI was asking the same thing. And we're trying to find it, but yeah, I'm not sure. I didn't get to spend as much time in it. I was only there about an entire week out of every month, probably. But the majority of the time, I was with Jeffrey anyways. It was somewhere in Royal Palm Beach. I don't know about Royal Palm Beach Drive. I don't even remember the Royal Palm Beach Drive anymore, so I'm not too sure. Scarola says, okay, let me see if I can draw the distinction for you. And maybe that will help you to help us. Royal Palm Beach is a village, that is. Virginia responds, no. I got Royal Palm Beach. I just didn't know the Royal Palm Beach Drive, like what street it's off of. Were you talking about a street? Yes, I was talking about a street. Royal Palm Beach Drive is on the island of Palm Beach, and it's a street that is lined with large royal palm trees. And I'm wondering if this was an apartment on the island, or was this an apartment out west of town? No, it was actually in Royal Palm Beach, not on the island. All right. I would be driven. It was closer to my family than it was closer to him. I wanted to be close enough to everybody else so that when I was in town, I could go see them quickly. Okay, so we're not talking about Royal Palm Boulevard. We're talking about the town of Royal Palm west of town. Jeffrey got you an apartment out there. That's correct. When he was in Palm Beach, you were generally not staying at the mansion. You were staying at the apartment that he got for you out west of town. That's correct. Okay. I mean, there was times, I want to say that every time I stayed at my apartment, there was times we'd fly back from some city, maybe too late at night to really want to go back home. So, it's like 12 o'clock at night or 1 o'clock in the morning. I was just staying in the yellow room or something like that, one of the guest rooms in Palm Beach. But majority of the time, I would definitely want to get back to my own apartment. All right. What were the general hours of your full-time employment when? There was not set hours. It wasn't like logging and, hitting the shift button, nothing like that. The way I would get paid would be, okay, if I was in Palm Beach, I would get $200 an hour to massage Jeffrey or some of his friends and then go home. So it would be like that. If I was traveling with him, it would be per massage, so I would be getting paid per day. So I wouldn't be getting paid on an hourly rate. He wouldn't say, okay, today you're going to work for me from 7 in the morning until 8 at night. It was never like that. I was on call all the time. When you were here in Palm Beach, were you actually getting paid only for the time spent massaging Jeffrey, or were you getting paid from your arrival at his house until you left the house? From the time the massage started. From the time the massage started. Okay. Sometimes we'd go there and I would wait for a while or talk with Ghislaine and Jeffrey about something, or we'd meet somewhere and talk about something. A lot of times I'd meet him upstairs in his room where he was ready for me. But then there was a lot of times where it didn't start right away, so he couldn't really pay me from the time I got there. Sometimes, unless I was paid from the time I massaged him till the time the massage was over. All right? Did your duties for Jeffrey ever include anything other than providing him massages and sex in connection with the massages? Did he give you ever any other responsibilities to perform? I was asked to do the same things that I did to Jeffrey to a few of his fellow colleagues as well. Those are my duties. He looked at it this way, is that I was going to be a professional massage therapist. And maybe I needed some clientele, so he had me perform erotic massages on a few people. Did that start here in Palm Beach County? It did. The first one did. Okay, and how long after you first met Jeffrey did he first ask you to provide services for one of his friends? About 9 months, I think it was. It wasn't a full year. It wasn't 6 months, but between 6 months and a year, which is why I'm saying 9 months. And when you provided services to a friend of Jeffrey's, who paid you for those services? Jeffrey would. I would get paid the next time I saw Jeffrey, so if I was invited to the Breakers Hotel to give a massage, I would give a massage. I would go home, and the next day when I saw Jeffrey, he would pay me for what I did. So it was paid always by him. It was set up by him, so he always knew what to pay me. I did get tips and things like that, if you call it that, like $100 tip or something from a few of them, Yeah. There was always payment from Jeffrey. Was there ever any discussion with Jeffrey about what was expected to happen when you provided massage services to one of Jeffrey's friends? In a roundabout way, yes. In so many ways, Jeffrey really, really had to train me, and that was why Ghislaine said that she and Jeffrey enjoyed me so much, was because they never really had to speak much to me to tell me what they wanted me to do. I wasn't waiting for, the directions. Jeffrey would tell me to go give an erotic massage to friends. He wouldn't give me much detail about it, but he would say to treat them like you treat me. Did he refer to it as an erotic massage, or are those your words? Erotic massage is my words. That's exactly what it was, but he would tell me to treat them how he wanted it. So I do what he wanted without having to say to me words more. I mean, I complied with what he wanted, because it was somewhat of a, I don't know how to say it. It was just very mind-boggling how I let him have so much power over me, basically. The massages would be routine to what Jeffrey wanted with my so-called new clientele, and with their own words would ask me to provide them with sexual pleasure after the massage. Did you ever report back to Jeffrey about what happened when you provided massages to his friends? Of course, and I knew that his friends were reporting back to him as well, because there were times where he would instigate instigate conversation by saying, so and so had a great time. You did wonderful. So and so gave me a call and told JE how it went. Did Jeffrey ever elicit details from you? Tell me what happened, describe in detail what went on. No, but he would have a laugh. He had a laugh with me a few times about some of their different mannerisms, I guess you would say. Like some of them, one guy had a foot fetish and was really weird, and I mentioned it to Jeffrey, and we would have a laugh over it. He didn't want to know details. He wasn't asking me, so tell me, what did you guys do exactly? No, he just basically gave me a slap on the back and said, good job. And we had some kind of conversation about it. I can't recall any conversation off the top of my head. I don't really know one. It's been that long. But yeah, we did talk about it briefly. Can you give me an estimate as to the number of friends for whom Jeffrey provided and paid for your services? There was about, I don't know, 8 guys probably. Are you able to name those people for me? No, not at this stage. Some of these people are really influential in power, and I don't want to start another shitstorm with a few of them. I'll tell you that there was some erotic massages given to. I'm just afraid to say it to you. Okay, Virginia? It's like, geez, I don't know if I want to. I'm really scared of where this is going to go. All right, I understand that. And as you told me from the beginning, if I ask you a question that you are uncomfortable answering, you just tell me that and I will move on. And I understand that at least right now, you are uncomfortable answering. And I am certainly going to respect that. Thank you so much, Jack. No, that's quite all right. I'm very appreciative of the cooperation you are providing. And I don't want you at any time to feel that we are taking unfair advantage of that cooperation. So give me the information that you're comfortable giving me, and if we do get to a point where you're uncomfortable, I will respect that and we'll move on from there. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about the traveling that you did with Jeffrey. About how long into your relationship with him did that first start? Immediately. I started traveling immediately. Not internationally until I think about, gosh, I can't even remember even. I think it was a year later that we started doing international travel. Maybe like 9 months to a year again. Not too sure, to be honest. So that would have been approximately the summer of 99. Somewhere around there? Yes, somewhere around there. Somewhere around a year, somewhere around there. I can't pinpoint it exactly. But like I said, we started doing domestic traveling immediately. So my first destination with him was New York and Santa Fe and the Caribbean. California, I would take trips with him occasionally. Sometimes we would go to St. Louis or New Orleans or Santa Cruz. We were traveling just about everywhere I think. How did you travel? Well, we took Jeffrey's private jet, unless I was being sent somewhere by myself for what we were just talking about before, then I would travel on what do you call a public jet, whatever it is. Commercial flight? Yes, just a normal flight, an e-ticket, like the rest of us common folk. But when I was traveling with Jeffrey, the majority of the time would be on the black jet. Now, when you were there, when you say there would be times when you would travel by yourself because he was sending you somewhere, tell me about that. How did that come about? So one of his colleagues would be up at the Caribbean or Santa Fe or in New York or whatever, and he would call me up on those days where I'm not working with him or in Palm Beach with him, and he would ask me to get on the next plane to so-and-so and go meet so-and-so, and that's when I would take e-tickets. His secretary or special assistant, whatever, would organize it for me and give me the details, and I would just walk up the line and they'd let me right through. Can you give me any ideas as to how many times it happened that Jeffrey would send you off to meet some friend of his at some location outside of Palm Beach? How many times it happened? I'm not too sure. Probably about 10 to 15 times. Okay. And on those occasions, how much time would you spend with one of Jeffrey's friends when you were sent to a location that you would have to travel to? Only a couple days, only 2 days, that's it. And how are you paid for those trips? I would be paid in cash upon my arrival back with Jeffrey. So whenever I was back with Jeffrey, he would count up how many days I've had, sometimes give me even more than what I deserved. Not deserved, but what I had earned, and give me a little extra. Was there a daily rate for those trips? Or was that per massage also? Per massage. With Jeffrey, I would be honest. I wouldn't tell him I did 15 massages if I didn't. He knew he could trust me. He could always come back to the other person that he sent me to give massage and ask them as well. So, it was always by per massage. All right. When we've been talking about massages, tell me exactly what it is we're talking about when we speak about massages. Same thing I would do with Jeffrey. Again, it would start out as a massage, which could start with them being naked and me giving him a legitimate massage to begin with. So I'd start with his feet, go up to his calves, up his legs, buttocks, back, his neck, his head, his arms, yada yada. And then it would be time to flip over. And some of the men would want me to continue on massaging the front side of them, and they would instigate me to begin having sex with them, or foreplay, whatever you want to call it. So routinely, these massages involved sexual activity. Is that accurate? That is accurate. Okay, let's talk about the travel that you were involved in when you were on. Okay, and we're back. Not sure what happened there, people. Scarola says, so routinely, these massages involve sexual activity. Is that accurate? That is accurate. Okay, let's talk about the travel that you were involved. Who were the passengers on the plane when you travel? Well, Larry was the pilot, and then there was a short, small, solid guy. I don't know his name, but he was a co-pilot. And then he changed, and there was another guy brought in later on. Generally speaking, there was always Jeffrey, sometimes Ghislaine, sometimes Emmy, sometimes a whole bunch of other girls, sometimes famous people, sometimes some politicians, or yeah, just about anybody could fly in his plane. There was never any set routine who would come and who would go. It was an influx of people on Jeffrey's airplane. I want to deal with these things separately in order to respect some of the reservations that you have. So I'm going to ask you when you were personally present. Okay, excuse the interruptions, people. I'm not really sure what's going on with the internet. Okay. So, Scarola says, so I'm not asking you to implicate any of these famous people in improper conduct, but just tell me what the names of the people are that you remember that you considered to be famous people. Okay, there was Naomi Campbell, Heidi Klum, there was Bill Clinton, there was Al Gore, there was a whole bunch of models. I wouldn't be really honestly be able to give their names. There was Matt Groening, the producer of the Simpsons cartoon. Jack Cousteau's granddaughter, a lot of interior designers, architects, politicians. I'm just trying to think of as many names as possible for you. Off the top of my head, that's as good as I can get for now. Okay, all right, that is fine. And again, I'm not implying by my questions, nor do I want your answers to be interpreted as you're suggesting that any of those people that you have just identified on any particular flight. But I want to talk to you now about what went on occasion on the airplane. Okay, it was a lot of the same thing that went down on the ground. A lot of times it would be just me and Jeffrey, or me and Jeffrey and Ghislaine, or me and Jeffrey and some other girls, sometimes Emmy, Sarah, and Nadia Bjornik. There would be sexual conduct, there would be foreplay, there was a bed in there, so we could basically reenact exactly it would. Sometimes it would lead to, orgies. Scarola says, were there occasions when you were in Jeffrey's company, whether on the ground or in the air, where there were other girls present whom you knew to be under age 18? Yes, there was a constant influx of girls coming in and going out, and we were all very young. On occasion, there was some older girls, and I don't mean older as in like their 30s or anything. I mean like 28, 29, something like that. Just very rarely. The majority of the girls that Jeffrey actually met or had on his plane in his house were underage. Do you know how it is? Yes. He would send me personally or with other girls to clubs or shops to pick up anywhere. I mean, we were constantly on the look for other girls that might satisfy Jeffrey. What instructions were you given about what to look for? Young, pretty, a fun personality. They couldn't be black. If there were any other descent other than white, they had to be exotically beautiful. That was just about it. Who gave you those criteria? They both gave us the instructions, and it wasn't just me. Jeffrey asked most girls to bring a friend and make extra money. They would use us young girls, so that way it probably looked a lot more safer to a girl that we were procuring to younger girls that were already doing it. That was the way that Jeffrey had it. Were you given any instructions? They would both ask me to uh, uh, taught me to, excuse me, depending on the circumstances, depending on the girl, You could offer them a job as a massage therapist, or you could tell them that you have a really rich friend with, great contacts in the acting world or modeling world, and he loves pretty girls. You should come back and meet him, make some money, as we had a whole bunch of ways to be able to procure girls. Can you give me any ideas as to the total number of underage girls that you know engaged in sexual? This is really weird, guys. I've never had these sort of problems. I mean, I do on occasion, but not this often. So please bear with me. I'm not really sure what's going on. So I'm just going to keep reading. And if these connections keep happening, I'll just pause like I have been and then wait till it resumes before continuing dictation. I am reading the phone call between Jeff Scarola, who is Mr. Edwards' attorney, and Mr. Edwards is Virginia's attorney. And this is just a phone call they had many years ago while Virginia was in Australia. So, continuing on. Scarola says, can you give me any idea as to the total number of underage girls that you know engaged in sexual conduct with Jeffrey during the period of time that you had your relationship with him? I would have no way of estimating that whatsoever. I mean, there could be 100, there could be more. Honestly, I'm not too sure how many girls, really. I wish I did know. I mean, like I said, there were so many over the course of 4 years with Jeffrey. Let me see if we can try to narrow it down a bit. Is there any doubt in your mind that it was more than 10? Yes, there were definitely more than 10. Okay, so what I want you to do is give me the highest number that you are comfortable in saying that you were definitely more than X number of underage girls that I know Jeffrey Epstein engaged in sex with while I had a relationship with him. How would you fill in the blank? Definitely more than how many? I'd say definitely more than 100. All right. Did Jeffrey ever help to pick out your clothes? Oh, yes. I mean, he wasn't out to dress me like a porn star or anything. He would always dress me very classy, but we'd just go shopping all the time together. Did he ever express any style preferences in terms of how he wanted you to dress? Besides dressing classy, any other suggestions to you about how he wanted you to dress? He didn't. Like I said, wasn't trying to dress me in any prostitute way or anything like that. It was nice, classy outfits I was wearing, like Gucci, Dolce Gabbana, Chanel, things like that. Chanel, sorry. He was buying me a lot of very, very nice clothing. It was provocative. I mean, I was wearing mini skirts and tight short shorts and little shirts that showed my belly and my cleavage and everything, but they were very expensive clothes. Was there ever any dress-up role-playing? Yes, there was. Lots of it. Jeffrey loved the latex outfits Ghislaine had for us girls. He had bondage outfits, he had all different kinds of outfits. But his favorite was the schoolgirl. Tell me about that. Well, Ghislaine would take me to dress me up to surprise Jeffrey, or he would ask me to get dressed up. That would include wearing a tiny little skirt with nothing underneath, a white collared shirt that you would be wearing to school with a tie in it, tied up in a bow, my hair in pigtails, stockings up to my knees, and I would go in there and act like a kid, and we'd do role-playing sexing. Did Jeffrey ever brag to you about the age of any of the girls with whom he had relationships? Sip. Yes, he did. He did all the time. The worst one that I heard from his own mouth was this pretty 12-year-old girls he had flown in for his birthday. It was a surprise birthday gift from one of his friends, and they were from France. I did see them. I did meet them. Jeffrey bragged afterwards, after he met them, that they were 12-year-olds and flown over from France because they were really poor over there. And their parents needed the money, or whatever the case is, and they were absolutely free to stay, and flew out. Those were the worst ones. He was constantly bragging about girls' ages or where he got them from, or their past and how terrible their past was and good he is making it for them. Where were the 12-year-old girls flown to from France? Where did they come to? Palm Beach. And were they flown in on Jeff's private plane, or did they get transported? No, they were transported by somebody else. Okay. Was the sexual activity that went on the airplane conducted in such a way so that any of the crew was aware of what was going on? They were told to knock if they had to come out, if the crew had to come out. They were told, to come out as little as possible. So they weren't out there hanging out watching everything. No, but it doesn't take an idiot to put two and two together to say, well, there's a whole bunch of half-dressed teenagers on board with this old man who is constantly being massaged by them. And he wants me to keep the door shut. For what reason? I mean, only they could put that together, but yeah, they knew. Did Mr. Epstein ever talk to you about people of power and influence owing him favors? He would laugh about it, I never really knew what to take serious from Jeffrey because he was such a funny character at times. You never knew if what he was saying was true or not. Yeah, lots of people owed him favors from what he told me. He's got everybody in his pocket, and he would laugh about he helps people for the sole purpose in the end they owe him something. That's why I believe he does so many favors in the first place. When and how did you first become aware that Mr. Epstein was in trouble with the law? I was first informed by, I think someone from the FBI called me first and started to ask me questions. And I started to answer the questions, but then fear took over, and I just said, look, I don't know what's going on. I've got a young family that I don't want to risk, Please don't bother me about this again. And it was a real short, simple conversation. And with a week or two, I had gotten a call from Jeffrey's attorney, and then a week later, Jeffrey himself. Okay, well, let's back up before we get to those conversations and tell me approximately when it was that you were contacted by the person who you believe was with the FBI. Okay, it's hard for me to pinpoint. If I had to pinpoint it, it would be in 2007 sometime. All right. And you were living in Australia at that time, correct? Correct. You were contacted by telephone? That's correct, by my cell phone. Okay, and do you have any idea how your name came up leading to that contact? No idea. No idea whatsoever. When I did ask, I was told that some girls had revealed my name, I guess, and that's how everybody, the FBI, knew to contact me. But I didn't know offhand, or sorry, I just walked into the wrong room. Okay, sorry, go on. Yes, and I'll never tell her you said that. Virginia, how long was it after the phone call from the FBI person were you contacted by Mr. Epstein's lawyers? Like a week. It was back to back each other. I remember being so scared after talking to the FBI, thinking, what's happening? What's going on? It's been like 6 years, 7 years at that stage. How did they find me, and what do I have to do with this? So yeah, I do remember that very well, and it was only about a week later I was called by his attorney. Who was it that contacted you? Do you remember? I want to say Bill Riley, but he might have been from the FBI. No, it was Bill Riley. Bill Riley. Not sure if that's his correct name, but that's what's coming to mind. What do you remember about that conversation? I remember a Mr. Goldberger as well. I remember there might have been two of them. All right? Can't remember which one it was. I want to say Bill Riley is the good one. All right, so either Bill Riley or Mr. Goldberger or both of them contacted you. And what do you remember about that? I don't know if it was the same guy who contacted me that week later who put me in touch with Jeffrey. I think he was on the phone and he put speakerphone on with Jeffrey. So he connected me with Jeffrey. I don't know if it was the same guy or different, but I definitely know that Bill Riley was the first guy to contact me. I'm pretty sure about that. Okay, tell me about that conversation. He asked me what I knew what's going on with Jeffrey, and apparently there was an investigation being held about some of the girls who had come out and said that Jeffrey had sexual contact with them under the age of a minor, and that he was discrediting a lot of these girls and making them out to be drug addicts and prostitutes and what have you, so they wouldn't be looked upon as worthy in the court's eyes, so to speak. And, he told me in the first 5 minutes that, if I stay quiet, that I'll be looked after. And that was the exact way it was said. It wasn't like, I'm going to pay you $1 zillion or anything if you be quiet. But if I stay quiet, I would be looked after. And I remember saying I don't want any part to do with this. This is not something I want to be a part of. I've got a young family. I wish the best for everybody in this, take care kind of thing. A week later, I was called after the hearing by one of Jeffrey's lawyers. I can't tell you exactly which one it was, but he had Jeffrey on the other line, and he connected Jeffrey and I. And Jeffrey tried to make some simple conversation. How are you? How have things been? You know what I mean? Catching up. Do you know if did the lawyer stay on the line while Jeffrey was speaking to you? I'm pretty sure he did. That's why I think Jeffrey was on speakerphone, because it sounded a lot different, and I was never taken off the line to begin with or connected to another line, so I was pretty sure Jeffrey was on speakerphone and the lawyer was making the call. After the simple conversation, it led to what was going on again, and Jeffrey couldn't believe it. He thought he helped all these girls out. He didn't think he was wrong in any circumstance here at all. A lot of these girls were drug addicts and just after drug money. He was really putting down these women, or these girls, I should say, not giving them the credit they deserved. And then he exactly repeated what the lawyer said the week before, is that he would look after me if I stayed quiet. And if I need any help, his lawyers would represent me and he would get legal help for me. Whatever I need, he would do. And I told him exactly. I said, Jeffrey, I'm the mother of 2 children at that stage. I'm away from everything there. I don't want to be a part of it. I'm not going to speak to anybody, and I don't want to speak to anybody. I don't want to be involved. That was the last time I heard from him. And the next thing I knew, I was sent my victim's letter, my notification of being a victim through the U.S. Attorney's Office. And that's when I knew it was well out there enough not to have Jeffrey's lawyers come back on me and discredit me in the same way he had done to all the other girls. So I called up Joseph Bird, who was the recommended lawyers on my paperwork that they had given me, and started going from there. So you contact Mr. Joseph Berg's office, and then you were dealing with his office from that point forward. That's correct. Tell me about the ending of your relationship with Jeffrey. That is, at what point in time did your full-time employment end, and how did that happen? Okay, so it hadn't really ended. I walked away from it all. Jeffrey sent me back to Thailand, where I met my husband and escaped to Australia, never to return back to the States. About 6 months prior to that, he came up with a proposition that I thought was really disgustingly sick. And it really showed me for the first time in the 4 years I had been with him that nothing was going to change, and I was always just going to be used by him, which I did not like. He offered me a mansion and some of his money every month. I forgot what he called it, a monthly income of what he had made to bear one of his children. The proposition was that if anything ever happened between Jeffrey and I, that I would have to sign my child over to him, basically, and that the child would be his and Ghislaine's, and I would be looking after it as long as nothing happened between Jeffrey and I. So I was kind of freaked out by all that. I pushed Jeffrey more to please get me some more training, and I was getting older and not as much of an interest to Jeffrey anyways. I was 19 now, and he likes a female a lot younger. So he sent me to Thailand in September of 2002. I was first supposed to meet a girl there and bring her back with me, but I never met up with her. I proceeded to get a short course in Thai massage, so that was to shut me up about my training, so I went there, and one of my friends from school invited me to watch a fight, like a Muay Thai fight, which is like a form of kickboxing. So I went and watched it, and I saw this guy that was a really good fighter, and a girl's word, I looked really hot. So I asked my friend who knew him to introduce me. We got introduced and fell in love immediately. 3 days later, Rob proposed, and 7 days later, I was being married in a Buddhist temple. I called Jeffrey and told him I'm sorry. I'm never coming back. I've gotten married. I've fallen in love. I thought he'd wish the best for me, but he was kind of rude, and he just said, "Have a good life," and hung up the phone. And that was the last time I talked to him ever until all this started again. Okay, Virginia, is there anything else that you would like to add to what you have told us up to this point in time? I'd like to know that this time around something's going to be done about it, and that Jeffrey and a lot of his colleagues, no matter how rich they are, will know that there is law and that there is people that still believe in it. So that's it. Thank you guys for listening to me, hearing me, and helping me. It's kind of hard to get through. Thank you very much. Yes, I'm sure it's been very difficult, and I'm very appreciative of the courage you have shown. Excuse me. The courage you have shown in doing what you have done, which really brings me to the last subject, and that is, what is it that motivated you to go public with all of this? Sharon Richards contacted me. I like her, I do. I like her a lot. I know she's a journalist, and journalists are normally blood-sucking leeches, but I like her for that. But she's an honest blood-sucking leech. She told me a lot about what was still going on, and she showed me a picture of Jeffrey with a little girl who looks like she could have been 12 years old. I mean, it was disgusting. I agreed to talk with her. I never agreed to do anything until she showed me some pictures. And at that stage, being a mother of 3 children and having a daughter who I would do anything for to protect, I would put my neck on the line to make sure she never has to go through what I had to go through. And knowing all this, and knowing that he's still out there doing the same exact thing with no regrets, no remorse, no worry about what he's doing to those girls, and all those girls feeling the same way that I did. So I'm doing it because I believe in my heart of hearts it's the right thing to do. It's what I would want somebody to do for my daughter or my sister or my friend. And it saddens me to know that it's still going on right now. It's like the seashell story. I don't know if you've heard the story about the little kid who throws back a starfish. The little brother tries to ask his sister, "Why do you throw them in? They're all going to die anyways." The little girl says, "Well, it's this one that I can help and this one that I can help." And that's what I feel like I'm doing. I'm making a small dent in this big world we live in. I certainly appreciate that courage. And I have heard that story, and you're absolutely right, that one person may not be able to make a difference for everyone, but one person can make a difference for someone. And hopefully you are making a difference for someone. We're going to do the best we can to make sure you are making a difference for as many people as possible. Thanks, Jack. Just a few other follow-up things I want to ask you. And again, if any of these questions are questions that you're uncomfortable in responding to, then don't hesitate to tell me that. Do you have any recollection of Jeffrey Epstein's specifically telling you that Bill Clinton owes me favors? Yes, I do. It was a laugh, though. He would laugh it off, I remember asking Jeffrey, what's Bill Clinton doing here? And he laughed it off and said, well, he owes me a favor. He never told me what the favors were. I never knew. I didn't know if he was serious. It was just a joke. Where was here? He told me a long time ago that everyone owes him favors, They're all in each other's pockets. When you say you asked him why is Bill Clinton here, where was he? On the island. When you were present with Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Clinton on the island, who else was there? Ghislaine, Emmy, and there was 2 young girls that I could identify. I never really knew them well anyways. It was just 2 girls from New York. And were all of you staying at Jeffrey's house on the island, including Bill Clinton? That's correct. He had about 4 or 5 different villas on his island, separate from the main house, and we all stayed in the villas. Were sexual orgies a regular occurrence on the island at Jeffrey's house? Yes. If we were to take sworn testimony from the people I'm going to name, and if those people were to tell the truth about what they knew, do you believe that any of the following people would have relevant information about Jeffrey's taking advantage of underage girls? So I'll just name a name, and you tell me yes if they told the truth, I think they'd have relevant information, or no, I don't think they would, or I don't know whether they would or not. Do you understand? Yes. Les Wexner. I think he has relevant information, but I don't think he'll tell you the truth. Alan Dershowitz. Yes. David Copperfield. I don't know. Tommy Mottola. I don't know. Prince Andrew. Yes. He would know a lot of the truth. Again, I don't know how much he would be able to help you with, but seeing he's in a lot of trouble himself these days, I think he might. So I think he may be valuable. I'm not too sure of him. Okay, Virginia, I think that's all I have for you. Let me tell you what I would like to do. As I told you in the beginning of this conversation, we've been recording it, and hopefully we've got a clear enough recording so that we've taken everything down accurately. And when it's transcribed, it will be clear and accurate. But what I would like to do is transcribe it, send it to you, have you take a look at it, and if there's anything that we got wrong in the statement, you can write back and you can make changes in the transcript so that the transcript is accurate. Is that fair? No worries, that is fair. No problem. All right, great. I really do appreciate that, and tell me what the best way is to send the transcript to you. Email. Okay, give me your email address. Redacted. Redacted. Thank you, Jenna. I appreciate it. No problem, Brad. Thank you very much. Bye-bye now. Take care, Jack. It's nice meeting you. You too. End. Exhibit 16. Filed under seal. Confidentiality agreement. Privileged and confidential joint defense and common interest privilege. Okay, so this is, again, just a confidentiality agreement between her and her lawyers, it looks like. Yep. Cassell, Morris, Edwards, and Boyce. So and they signed at the bottom. So again, that's kind of a formality, I would say. It's just a confidentiality agreement. And then Virginia signs again. This is on the 18th of May, 2015. Okay, moving on. The United States District Court, Southern District of New York. Virginia Giuffre, the plaintiff, versus Ghislaine Maxwell, the defendant. Despite having taken only 3 depositions to date, Ms. Giuffre prematurely requests permission to exceed the presumptive 10 deposition limit. The heart of her argument is that Ms. Maxwell inconveniently testified and denied her claims, rather than invoking her Fifth Amendment right. So this looks like a response. And number 1 says, plaintiff's request is premature. The testimony sought is irrelevant to this single count defamation case. Yeah, so that is Maxwell's attorney's response. Again, her lead attorney is Laura A. Menninger. So, it's kind of boring stuff. It's just basically her saying, I disagree with Virginia. Okay. The United States District Court, Southern District of New York. Virginia Giuffre versus Ghislaine Maxwell. Declaration of Laura A. Menninger in support of the defendant's response in opposition to motion to exceed presumptive 10 deposition limit. So again, Virginia was requesting more than 10 depositions. Ghislaine is rejecting that, and then again we have her attorney supporting that rejection. Okay. Confidential videotaped deposition of Virginia Giuffre, the 3rd of May, 2016. Virginia L. Giuffre versus the plaintiff versus Ghislaine Maxwell, the defendant. So once again, Virginia is being deposed. Okay, so her lawyers are present. Boyes, Schiller, Flexner, Famer, Wessing, Edwards, Learman. Okay. Question, Menninger. Okay. What part of paragraph 4 do you now believe to be untrue? And approximately, Edwards, object to the form. You can answer. In approximately 1999, when I was 15 years old, I met Ghislaine Maxwell. I now know that it was 2000, that I was 16 years old when I met Ghislaine Maxwell. So she is being deposed by Menninger, right, or Menninger, Ghislaine's lawyer. So when you sign this document under penalty of perjury, stating that it was true, you no longer believe that to be true, correct? It was an honest mistake. We had no idea how to pinpoint without any kind of records or dates or anything like that. I was just going back chronologically through time, and that's the best time that I thought it was. And now I know the facts, so it's good to know. So you now believe that a document you filed under oath is no longer true. Is that correct? Mr. Edwards, object to the form. Virginia, I wouldn't say that it wasn't true. I was just unaware of the time and dates. Again, is there more than one truth, Miss Roberts? No, there's no more than one truth. All right. So a document in which you swore that you were 15 years old when you met Ms. Ghislaine Maxwell is an untrue statement. Correct. Object to the form. It's Mr. Edwards. It's not that it's an untrue statement. It was a mistake. So it wasn't intentionally trying to say something that wasn't true. It was to my best knowledge that I thought it was 99. And when I got my records from Mar-a-Lago, I was able to find out that it was actually 2000. And this was entered before I found out the actual dates that I did work at Mar-a-Lago. Okay. So a document that you filed under oath is now, you believe, to be untrue. Objection asked and answered. Mr. Edwards, you may answer. Answer again. Again, I wouldn't say it's untrue. Untrue would mean that I would have lied, and I didn't lie. This was my best knowledge at the time. And I did my very best to try to pinpoint time periods going back to such a long time ago. It wasn't until I found the facts that I worked at Mar-a-Lago in 2000 that I was able to figure that out. And approximately when did you learn those facts about the dates you worked at Mar-a-Lago? I would say it was mid-2015. Mid-2015 is the first time you became aware of the dates. I don't know the exact. If you could just let me finish. I'm sorry. That's all right. Approximately mid-2015 when you learned the true dates that you had worked at Mar-a-Lago. That's correct. Sorry. And based on the fact that you learned the fact you had worked at Mar-a-Lago in 2000, you became in mid-2015 that you had met Ms. Maxwell in 2000. Correct? Object to the form. That's correct. So anytime there's an objection or move to strike, that's going to be Mr. Edwards, just so I don't have to say his name again. Manager continues. All right. And you became aware in mid-2015 that you were not 15 years old when you met Ghislaine Maxwell. Object to the form. That's great. That's correct. Okay. And who provided you those Mar-a-Lago records in approximately mid-2015? I'm going to object, and to the extent this invades the attorney-client privilege. If it was your attorneys that you spoke to and learned this information or received this information from, then you are instructed not to answer. I cannot answer that question. Did you look? Did yourself look? And it ends there. Next document, Virginia L. Giuffre, plaintiff versus Ghislaine Maxwell, defendant. Declaration of Laura Menninger in support of reply, in support of motion to compel all attorney-client communications and attorney work product placed at issue by plaintiff and her attorneys. So again, this is her, Ghislaine's attorney, trying to procure any and all communications between Virginia and her attorneys. Which is, again, motions that we went over in my previous videos and in the previous documents. So I am going to, move forward just because it's a lot of legal jargon. And okay, the next document, Giuffre versus Maxwell. Deposition of Virginia Giuffre on the 3rd of May, 2016. Okay, so I just read some of this. Let's see if it continues. 29. Okay, here we go. It does continue. So Menninger was saying, did you yourself look at records in the middle of 2015, regardless of who showed them to you? Objection. And to the extent that you were showed to you or shared by any of your lawyers, you're instructed not to answer the question. It invades attorney-client privilege. Did you look at Mar-a-Lago records in the middle of 2015 yourself? She's not answering the question. On what grounds is she not answering the question? I just told you it invades attorney-client privilege. If she learned, I will instruct her if she learned by some other way than her attorneys sharing the information with her, then she can answer the question. I'm asking you not to tell me whether your attorney showed you the record. I'm asking you not to tell me the source of the record. I'm asking you if you personally, in the middle of 2015, looked at Mar-a-Lago records. Same objection, same instruction. I'm going to show you an exhibit filed on or about the 6th of February, 2015. Mr. Edwards says, thank you. Okay. All right, and Declaration of Jane Doe 3. Do you see that? Yes. And it's in the Crime Victims' Rights Act, correct? That particular case of Jane Doe 1 and 2 versus the United States of America. Yes. All right, and do you recognize this document? Yes. And what do you understand this document to be? I believe it's more reason to why I should have been added to the CVRA case. Objection to the relevance, counsel. Okay, and again, if you look to the last page of the document, paragraph 67, the last page, yes, the very last, it says in paragraph 67, I declare under penalty of perjury that the foregoing is true and correct, right? Yes. And it was executed on or about the 5th day of February 2015, correct? It's a bit smudged, but it kind of looks like a 5, all right? And then there's a signature block that's redacted that says Jane Doe 3, correct? Yes. Do you believe that you signed this document and it was later covered up by that block? Yes. All right. And again, is there anything in this document that you believe today to not be true? I ask that you read through the entire document and answer the question, says Mr. Edwards, and it ends there. United States District Court, Southern District of New York. Virginia Dufresne versus Ghislaine Maxwell. Declaration of Sigrid McCauley in support of plaintiff's reply to motion to exceed presumptive 10 deposition limit. So this is basically, again, support of her lawyer to exceed that limit of depositions. One of her lawyers. She's got quite a team at this point. Sigrid McCauley, David Boyce, Bradley J. Edwards, and Paul Cassell. And again, Edwards and Cassell were there from the beginning. Moving forward, page 194. United States District Court, Southern District of New York. Virginia Dufresne, the plaintiff, versus Ghislaine Maxwell, the defendant. A corrected declaration of Sigrid S. McCauley in support of plaintiff's reply to motion to exceed presumptive 10 deposition limit. So basically just an amendment to her support of that deposition limit request. United States District Court, Southern District of New York. Virginia Dufresne versus Ghislaine Maxwell. Declaration of Laura A. Menninger, Ghislaine's attorney, in support of defendant's response in opposition to extending deadline to complete depositions. So at this point in the case, Virginia is requesting for more depositions, and Ghislaine is trying to fight that. So again, I'm not going to read this. A lot of legal jargon that pretty much all of us wouldn't understand. But you get the basic notion, and that's the important thing. Exhibit B. Okay, I'm going to have to zoom in. I'm going to take a sip. Okay. The Billionaires Playboy Club by Virginia Roberts. To my true love, Robbie, who believes in me every step of the way, and to all of my children, you are all my very inspirations. Every single person in this shared world together has a unique story of his or her own to tell. This one is mine. It was coming up on my 3rd night camping out at Miami Beach in the summer of 1997. I was 13 years old and hiding from a world full of hurt. Sitting on the shoreline for hours, watching the sunset fall deeper into the horizon, my eyes were glazed over with tears. Not from being wind-whipped by the rough sea breeze, but from reflecting on the abuse I encountered as a young girl, and how everyone in my life who was supposed to be there for me had now turned their backs on me in abandonment. My fears crept up. and the excitement of escaping all of them faded, now realizing how alone I really was now, and for the hunger that was paining my belly. At this point, with nowhere to go and only time to waste, I wiped the tears from my eyes and set out to find an empathetic person that I could manage to get dinner money from. If not, it wouldn't have been the first time I had gone hungry for the night. I walked to the nearest bus stop and asked a handful of people for any spare change, none of whom that could help me. Sitting down on a nearby curb, disappointed in the grief of my current state, I put my head into my knees and began to sob. Out of nowhere, it seemed, a black stretched limousine turned the corner and stopped in front of the curve where I had been hopelessly lost. The back door opened to reveal a heavyweight and a balding old man with a big cheesy smile. Neatly dressed in black trousers and collared shirt, he was sitting next to a striking young blonde girl, drop-dead beautiful and dressed in a foxy red mini dress. She looked like a model just stepping off a runway. Their smiles greeted me warmly, and he kindly asked, "What is such a sweet little girl like you doing sitting alone on the street, looking so upset?" Shocked from this stranger's concern, I was hesitant in telling him the truth. Reluctantly, I decided to tell them that I was a runaway, not from around here and really hungry, hoping at most I would get some money for food from him. He instantly displayed a chilling excitement and offered me to come into his car so we could talk some more. That should have been my first cue to get out of there quickly, but with nowhere to go and so naive, I didn't realize how much worse it could get. Setting foot into that limo, I made my first entrance into a world that would entrap me for many years to come. He introduced himself immediately as Ron Eppinger, a businessman and owner of a successful modeling agency called Perfect 10. Flaunting his oozing wealth by introducing one of his many girlfriends, the beauty next to him was Jana, a supposed model from the Czech Republic who looked like she could be in her early 20s with the heavy load of makeup she was wearing, but really was only in her late teens. She kissed me on both cheeks and politely said hello in a thick Czech accent, making me feel a little bit more at ease. Convinced it couldn't be that bad, there was another girl in the car, right? I couldn't be more wrong. What he didn't tell me to begin with was that his modeling agency was only posing for an undercover trade. By the time I found out, I thought it was too late to run. His business was really an illegal immigrant trafficking ring of young women, mostly consisting of underage girls that he was using as escorts to make him uber rich. Only available to a selective clientele, costing them anywhere from $1,000 and over per hour of erotic entertainment. The girls were trained to fulfill every sexual desire asked of them, no matter how bizarre their requests might be. The high-paid escorts for Ron's super-rich clientele, such as Jana and many other charismatic beauties, would only benefit a fraction of their earnings for themselves, Ron reaping in the majority of the financial rewards, and being that they were all illegal immigrants, they were further trapped by his enslavement. I proceeded to introduce myself. Besides what he had found out about me in the curbside, telling him my name and a little bit how I ended up on the streets, explaining that I could take care of myself and didn't need my family or anyone to look after me anymore. Looking back later in life, I can now admit I was in a terrible state, but being such a headstrong teenager, I refused to give in. He asked my age and I told him I was 16 at first. He coyly replied, "Are you sure? I think you could be telling me a fib." "How old are you really? I won't be mad." Being a terrible liar, I knew I had been caught and I couldn't deny it any further. I told him the truth, and he chuckled, then paused and answered in a very serious tone. As long as you never lie to me again, I will take you in. Right away I pondered to myself, what did he mean, take me in? He gave the driver the location of our destination and rolled the middle window back up to then tell me a story of how his daughter had passed away 7 years ago from a horrific car accident in which 4 other teens were killed, and he's never gotten over it. I reacted with a sheer sympathy and gave him my pity, believing this man had a heart. His next proposal was eerie. He said, if you wanted, I can be your new daddy. Someone to take care of you, and you'll be my new baby forever. He stroked my hair, such as a caring parent would comfort a scared child. A part of me wanted to accept his words and believe he really could feel that way. Then I also considered how hard it was living on the streets. In the end, I convinced myself that this would be the lesser of 2 evils. The car stopped at a plaza on the water, surrounded by little boutique shops, restaurants, and little stalls with items for sale like sunglasses and costume jewelry. I didn't know what to say or do or how to act. It all happened so fast, I just went along with everything he said for now. We went to a takeout restaurant and ate on the waterside, and afterwards he took me to Gap Kids Company to dress me in the idea of proper attire. Tiny cut-off shorts revealing the cusp of my butt, and some shirts that barely fit. Even the sales assistant was shocked at what she thought was my grandfather's choice in clothing. I couldn't even believe it myself. Only an hour ago I was begging for money, living on the streets. And now I was dining al fresco and shopping at name-brand outlets. We then hit a couple more specialty stores afterwards. He said he had to buy me a few more necessities to start with. Lacy G-strings and what looked to me like lingerie pieces I had only seen grown women wearing in magazine ads or movies were now part of my wardrobe. In my mind, it was a big step up from being a little girl any longer. The driver took us back to Ron's grand apartment overlooking the Isle of Key Biscayne and a large bridge leading into a Miami harbor. Entering his residence, I was blown away by the spectacular view. Rich decor and white marble. Floors that were so glossy I looked as if I was stepping on glass. He took my shopping bags to a large room at the back of the apartment and put them into a small closet. The room was considerably large with glass exterior walls that maximized the potential of the panorama landscape soaking in the seascape of Miami. In the room was a gigantic round bed raised off the floor by 3 steps and mirrors on the ceiling. It looked like a honeymoon suite out of a raunchy hotel. He then exclaimed, "This is my room here and you will be sharing it with me." When I asked him where I would sleep, he then sickly replied, "With me, silly. Where else, of course?" With no room for argument, I pretended to be okay with everything that my common sense was screaming out in my head to run. Next, I was taken down a long hall at the other end of the apartment to meet 5 more exotic beauties. 3 girls were in their late teens and the other 2 in their early 20s. All of them were from the Czech, here under false passports provided by Ron and his contacts. Yana held my hand while introducing me to the group of girls as Baby. Give me a sec. I just lost my thoughts. They introduced me to the girls as Baby. A pet name she came up for me, being that I was the youngest among them, or ever to be brought in by Ron for that matter. It became my new identity, not even worrying to mention my real name to anyone anymore. My identity was no longer important to myself. I wanted to become someone new, and baby is who I was. A shocking first impression, the girls were completely nude, revealing their voluptuous young bodies with such a careless ease, and others were in just a G-string, similar to the ones Ron had bought me earlier. They were all stunning girls and full of life. Charismatic and beautiful, they were the girls who should be on the front of billboards, not selling their bodies to old, crude men for sex. Doing each other's makeup in front of the mirror and chatting away on the bed with no care in the world, aiming at persuading me to see the highlights of the life Ron gave them, and they almost did. Ron left the room for a few moments, letting us all get to know each other a little better, and that's when I started to compile an understanding of what really went on here. Just catching a bit of their conversation from before my introduction, I heard them chatting about the night they were preparing for, speaking excitedly about some men they would be entertaining in a few hours. One girl was talking about going out to sea with one of these clients on a yacht for a few days. Since none of the girls seemed shy to talk about their professions or anything else for that matter, I decided to ask them a few questions about what they did. They were more than happy to expand on their point of view in the conversation, attempting to paint a pretty picture of what they were paid to do. They all began to jump up and down with excitement like giddy schoolgirls at a slumber party. Another girl with jet black hair and a thick accent, wearing absolutely nothing at all, grabbed me onto the bed with them and into their fiasco, instantly making me feel accepted into their sorority, like I actually belonged somewhere for once. Yana went on to explain a little more in detail. We accompanied the wealthy friends of Ron. They want only beautiful girls by their side, so we come and act however they want us to. But most importantly, we make them think we want them back too. Other girls began to jump in with their vivid points of view, while playing with my hair. They were taking turns brushing and styling it, as they were filling my head with all the prospects I could have as an escort too. They made me feel beautiful like them, too beautiful for what a girl beyond my years should feel. I was simply being lured into a dangerous trap, just like they had been at a young age too. It pretty much all came down to two things in their game: the money they would make and the lifestyle they were given. Their enthusiasm only interested me further, making it not only sound like an acceptable way of living, but also appearing to keep them all vivaciously satisfied. This way of life was just mind-blowing to even comprehend at first. With such a new outlook of the world to try and grasp at my young age, I was listening to every word spoken to me with such attentiveness. I was going to try and model what I was observing from the girls. I justified their way of thinking in my head for now, thinking if all these girls seem happy enough, why couldn't I try to be? It was this or the streets for me. Ron came back for me not long after our conversation got out of hand and took me to a bathroom down the hall. He opened up the tap and filled a small plastic cup with water and handed me two small blue oval pills. Telling me to take them both as they would help me to relax a bit more, I swallowed the pills, just following his orders. I put the cup on the countertop and turned back to facing him. Backing me up against the wall and now cornered by this large man, I felt his slithering hands begin to creep under my shirt, writhing my skin. I closed my eyes tightly and I turned my head away from him, hoping he would take my actions as a sign of being extremely uncomfortable, but that wouldn't bother him at all. He was half enjoying my reaction from the smug look on his face, and persisted through it. Continuing to undress my clothes, he said he wanted to look me over and clean me up. It was so humiliating having to expose myself to this aging man, and now I knew he was going to end up with his hands and whatever else all over me. All too soon, I hated to be right. As I stood naked before his widened eyes, he told me, "You're a hairy bugger. I'll have to shave you right up, young lady." And I didn't know he wasn't just talking about my legs. Standing with my legs wide apart while this man coaxed me through the entire ordeal of shaving, his hands made me feel so dirty. Have I lost my mind? I thought to myself, but I had to play nice until I had an opportunity to get away. This was not as fun as the girls made it out to be after all. This was utterly disgusting. I had no idea what was going to happen next with this guy, and due to whatever pharmaceuticals he gave me, I still don't know to this day. Waking up the next morning, my head was pounding in an agonizing thumping pain, and I was so thirsty. Okay, I'm gonna have to take a break. Guys, I'm getting pretty tired and I need to get a snack. Just gonna look at comments. Thanks everybody for tuning in. This has been part 4 of my reading. I'm on page 205 of 638 of the released documents. Looks like we had a troll show up. Shout out to Quadrex for kicking him out. Thanks to Annette for tuning in. Just some thoughts about what I read today. I guess, I don't know, it is, I guess, shocking somewhat to hear that Epstein specifically didn't want any black girls. He said he only wanted white girls, and if they weren't white, he wanted them to be exotic. So, you know, he obviously had his preference. Obviously, he was very young, teenage white girls. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. Again, my voice is getting pretty tired right now, but I'm gonna do part 5 within a few hours here, a couple hours, maybe sooner, depending on how I'm feeling. So I do have some other stuff to get to today. I'm gonna schedule some interviews coming up. I got some doctors that I'm talking to pretty soon. Gonna get them on the round table. So yeah, be on the lookout for that. Thanks for tuning in. All the best from the Midwest. Stay frosty, and until next time.